Welcome everybody to Pure Soul. This is our first interview and episode. However, I'm going to call it. I'm not sure yet. It'll probably be Pure Soul with Stormie Andrews. So he has been my guest on Meet My Friends already. And can you tell us your number?
I forget my number.
I think it was number 15.
I'm going to go with number 15. That's the number that I'm going to go with. We're going to go 15. I know for this one here, I'm going to go with number 1.
Yes. So if you're a fan of Meet My Friends, and if you're not familiar with Meet My Friends, every guest that comes in has a number. So Stormy is friend number 15, and this is a continuation of what we talk about on Meet My Friends. Basically, Meet My Friends was to gain knowledge about a little bit about him, and we went into his book, which is The Best Buyer Persona. Do you have it to show it to
Oh,
us?
I do, yeah. It's the world's best buyer persona system.
Okay, so what happened on the first video is that when we talk about best buyer persona, he also mentioned that there is a part of the book that helps on relationships because he got feedback from someone who read it and he said, you missed the point. You know, this is also very helpful on relationships. But so right now, what is happening in Stormy's life is that he recently got divorced after 29 years of marriage. And what happens when we go into situations like that is it's a stage of sadness, and at the same time you get all these realizations about letting go of someone, and you see them under a different light. And I wanted him to tell us, because this is so important. A lot of us go through divorce, and it's almost like you tap easily into the wisdom of the universe, but also you gain an understanding about life in a different way. Welcome, Stormy. I
Absolutely.
want you
Thank you.
to tell us, how are you feeling right now?
Right now, I'm feeling pretty good.
Okay.
I don't know how, when you want me to dive into this whole divorce thing and how it changed me, but it's been a pretty incredible ride. Today, I don't know if we want to, date this, but today happens to be August 27th. I believe my divorce was final. We still haven't figured it out. It was either finalized on August 1st, on September 1st or September 17th. We don't know which date to run with, but it was finalized one of those 2 dates.
Yeah, so it's recent. So sometimes when people get divorced, it's almost, they call it like having an accident from the fifth floor. And you're going through these stages there where you deny it, where you are mad about it, and finally you become in peace with it. But sometimes not everybody goes through the same process, you know. You can go maybe through the end of the process or to the beginning, but it takes time for people to basically not cry about it anymore. But
Right.
everyone is different. I think it depends on what happened in the relationship, how it ended. And I think it's easier when they both agree that is the best decision they can do at the moment.
Yeah, and for me, it was a pretty interesting journey because this started last year. So it was in July of last year. My wife said, "Hey, I want to have a talk with you," and I'm like, "Okay, no problem." And she says, "Let's go in the backyard. Let's have this conversation." So I go out the sliding glass door, and I go out there. She's sitting in. We have a gazebo area that she's sitting underneath, and pretty matter of factly and bluntly, but scared. There was tears coming out of her eyes when she told me this, but she basically stated that she wasn't in love with me anymore, and those were the hardest words that I ever heard. I was completely caught off guard. I was in shock. I'm like, what are you talking about? We had a marriage that, in our 29 years of marriage, we could probably count the number, the number of disagreements and arguments on one hand. And as she proceeded to tell me this, now I'm in tears, she's in tears, we're going through the conversation, and it was completely blown off guard. And here's the thing that really blew me away was, and this is something that if you're a dude and you're listening to this, please, please, please pay attention to what I'm about to tell you. It's, if you were to ask me the day before, hey, Stormy, how would you rate your relationship? I would have said, oh yeah, we're a 10. I'm a 10. I'm married to my best friend. Things are great. We're a 10. And then to find out the next day that my wife wasn't in love with me, meaning that in her mind, our relationship was a 1. That was just a very strong awakening for me. At that moment, I didn't know what to do. And I either I could have blamed her and said, oh, this is all you, you're crazy, delusional, whatever. I could have gotten angry and mad and upset, or I could have looked inside and say, how could she feel this way? And more importantly, how could I be so oblivious, just completely oblivious to her feelings? And then that's probably one of the things that I was most impacted by, was the fact that she had these feelings, and I was completely unaware of those feelings. And as we continued the conversation, she shared with me that she was feeling this way for quite some time. So it wasn't an overnight scenario, but she was feeling this way for quite some time. And she was just afraid to tell me. So she was living with these feelings for a couple of years, just afraid to say anything. And, I'm oblivious to it. And then, during that realization, I'm like, my God, you know what? I had my wife living in probably this internal hell that she was in, because you know how it is when you're kind of bugged and irritated and annoyed and whatever it is by a particular person. And the more that person's around, the more of those feelings that you get. And me being oblivious, I can imagine, because I'm kind of a goofball anyway. So every time, for quite some time, I would continue to do and say and act the way I've always done it. And it was just probably driving her further and further, away from me. So shame on, and we've talked about this, so I can say this: shame on her, for not coming to me sooner. But more importantly, shame on me for not realizing that she wasn't in a really good place. So that was kind of the scenario. And I can continue going, but you probably have more questions, because Maria knows that I tend to be a long-winded person with my answers, and I go on these different tangents. So if you want to go in a different direction, let's take it there. Otherwise, I'll start from there and continue.
No, well, what I want to ask you at this point is that, so when she told you it has been a couple of years after that conversation, how do you feel about probably thinking about what has been happening for the last couple of years that you had not noticed before?
Yeah, so at that point, that's when I had to do some soul searching. One of the things, and going back to dudes, please listen to this. I can only, I'm a dude, so I have some experience on what it's like to be a dude. But I bought into a narrative of the definition of being a good husband and a good man. I bought into the narrative that I learned from my dad, right? That was the only experience I knew. And, my dad's narrative of being a good husband was, provide for your family, make sure there's food on the table, buy your wife nice things. And that's what I did. And I considered that to be, that's what you're supposed to do. Those are the good things that you're supposed to do. And someone introduced me to the book, The 5 Love Languages. And it was a pretty powerful book, because as I looked into the 5 love languages and I started to read it, I realized several things about myself. And I also realized several things about her that I didn't realize. And some of the things that I realized was that I'm a person that likes, to share, to show your love to me, you give me words of affirmation. And if I get words of affirmation, I feel pretty darn good about it. And the way I express love to my wife was I'd give her positive words of affirmation, believing that that was the way to show love. Well, after reading the 5 love language, I realized that her love language was acts of service. So my wife, she wasn't the person that wanted, a new car or some new, fancy handbag. She just wanted me to load the dishwasher, or help around the house. And those were things that my lazy butt didn't do and didn't understand it, because those were things, and I don't want to make excuses. Those were things that, my dad didn't do either. But, shame on me. And the weird part about it is I like, I've studied personal development my entire life. And I'm like, okay, personal development, this from the greats. But one of the things that I never, ever dived into was relationship development. And that was something that was just introduced to me after my wife, shared that news with me. But once she shared the news with me and I started digging deep and decided to take, responsibility instead of deflecting it, the first thing I realized was, what? She's an incredible person. We've been married for 29 years. We started dating when she was a senior in high school. I was 1 year removed from school, and, had 2 great kids together. We got a granddaughter, and she definitely unequivocally made me a better individual, a better person. So just because she had a change in feelings didn't necessarily make her a bad person. Now, at the time, I'm thinking she's a bad person because I'm hurt. My feelings are hurt. I'm like, how dare you? You know what I mean? And I'm crying, and I'm going through all of the different stages of emotions. I'm completely devastated, and I also happen to be a very a consummate optimist. So I really felt and thought we were going to work this thing out. And we went to therapy. I would, I put the pedal to the metal, doing anything and everything that I could do to swoo her and wine and dine her, if you want to use those terms, and re-romance the relationship. But at that point, it was just too late, and just a little too much too late. And and what I realized after going through the emotions is that I've been a person that my entire life I have a strong belief that I never want to look back on my life and say, I wish I would have. And because I've seen most of the older people, elderly people I've seen that I've been able to talk to, and I ask them about their regrets in life, it always comes down to, or not always, but most of the time it comes down to, I wish I would have. I wish I would have did this. I wish I would have done that. And I made that decision a long time ago that I'm not going to be that person. And I preach that to my wife. I preach that to my kids. And one of the things that really brought me to really accept that our relationship was not going to be the same was, over the years when my wife and I got married, as I mentioned, we started dating. I was really her first boyfriend. So she's dated one person in her life. She's never lived on her own. She was the oldest of 5 siblings. And with her 5 siblings, she was almost like their second mom. So she was always taking care of someone. And then when she gets married, she moves directly out of her parents' house into her husband's apartment. And deep down inside, she had those feelings that I wish I would have did this dating thing. I wish I would have lived on my own. I wish I would have experienced some of these things that she just didn't get. So I would have been a hypocrite if I didn't support her on her journey of this. I wish I would have. So, we are officially divorced, and it's kind of funny. After our divorce came final, we actually went camping. We took our granddaughter camping, together. So we've got an incredible relationship, and but it's on a different level. It's a friendship, and I'm supporting her on her journey and her dreams because Lord knows she supported me on my journey and my dreams. These 29 years of marriage. So how could I not be her biggest fan, which I am, even though it's in a different capacity than it's always been. I don't know if I answered your question. I just went on my own tangent, Maria.
No, you did. You did. Definitely, I think when someone tells you, "I don't love you anymore," you're kind of looking back, and it's almost like songs always express a lot about. I didn't notice when the light was turned off, and I probably didn't notice that you were crying where I was making you love, or things like that. Like you started kind of feeling like, at what point didn't I notice that she wasn't necessarily where I was?
Yeah, and that was the part that was probably the most hurtful for me. I cried about it. I apologized to her that during the time that you had these feelings, that for you couldn't feel that you can come to me and share those with me, and you for whatever that reason may be, I am sorry, and I just felt bad. It's just one of those things. How could that be? I'm not a person that yells or gets angry or all that other stuff, but she was just concerned about my feelings. I don't know how to say this to him, and then throwing that into the equation where I started thinking about her, and the more I think about her in that regard, I'm like, man, you know what? For her, it had to be like she was living in this personal hell because she's in this scenario, doesn't want to say anything, afraid to say something, and the other person, being me, completely oblivious to what's going on, just had to be such an incredible experience that I wouldn't wish upon anyone. And that's probably the thing that I'm most regretful for, in that regard. Maybe if I would have noticed something early on, if I wasn't so oblivious, I could have approached her. I made it much easier for her to share her feelings with me. And then, who knows, maybe at that point we would have been able to turn things around. But being oblivious, isn't, an excuse. It was just too late. By the time that she shared her feelings with me, she had already gotten to the point where she essentially, checked out.
No, I understand. I remember when I had the feelings, about my husband. He was my husband. And what I was going through is that I felt he was a good man, but I didn't feel he was a good husband. So I have this respect for him and this appreciation because he's the father of my kid. But I also, I was thinking that it will hurt his feelings, but also I didn't see my life otherwise. But another aspect that held me back in saying something is that I was thinking on his family and my family, how they were going to take it, because we were like the good example of what a marriage is. And they counted on us a lot. Like whenever the family needed anything, it was almost like we were the grandpas instead of his parents being. So I was afraid of breaking that shell for them and how they were going to see me. It was almost like I was going to be the bad person, or he didn't do anything wrong and I have no right to say that. So I think she probably went through something similar where like, your husband is a good man, but it's like you're not happy with him as a husband, if that makes sense.
No, it makes total sense. And it's so funny that you shared that background because, during our marriage, we were the pillars of both sides of the family.
Yeah.
We were the example. We were the family that all holidays were at. So just as you shared, there had to be some fear and trepidation in regards to the exact same scenario. Even my wife's, her brother, she's the oldest of five. So when we started dating, her brothers and sisters were from high school down to elementary school. And, now they have their own families, but they consider me to be a brother. So one of the things that we did as we were, winding our marriage down is we had a conversation with all of them and said, listen, just because our marriage is over doesn't mean I'm not your brother anymore. I'm still your brother. One of her brothers was supposed to come over today. You know what? He was supposed to come over today. We were supposed to go ride quads in the desert. I'm going to get on him about that. But when they come to Vegas and they visit, one of her siblings lives here. The other ones live in California. If they come to Vegas, even her father, my ex-father-in-law, when they come to Vegas, when they need a place to stay, this is the place that they'll stay. So it's still an incredible relationship all the way across, because just because the marriage ended doesn't mean that those other relationships that have been built, when her family has their family reunions, which they do every year, there's a strong possibility that I'll be going to them too, even though, I'm not part of the family. Who knows, maybe one day when I start this dating thing, once I figure that out, which is your other show, once I learn how to do that, because it's been a while, who knows, maybe I'll take a girlfriend to their family reunion, just because that would be weird.
Well, you can talk about dating your ex-wife,
You're right.
How are you dating her now after the divorce?
No, we're not dating. Like, even though we went camping together, so we went camping. She slept in her tent. I slept in mine, and her brother, his wife, and their two kids were on the camping trip also. And we just hung out and just had a good time as if we were friends. So we're not dating. We're just friends. It was funny. This weekend, she went to the airport, and this is something that it experiences that we did, and she did it on her own for the first time. So you go to the airport and you go to an airline and you're like, hey, where's the cheapest flight, with no destination in mind, but where's the cheapest flight that that you can sell me a ticket to right now that I can fly to and then come back on Sunday. So, she reached out to me and she said, hey, do you have a couple of bucks you can loan me, because I'm going to do that this weekend? I'm like, absolutely. So I don't know where she's at, but she flew someplace, and I paid for that dumb trip. No, just kidding. But, but yeah, like I said, we can still be, even when I start dating again, it's one of those things that we're friends. She's the mother of my kids, and we're buds, but it's just a different scenario now.
No, I understand, but dating is also like going out with your girlfriends or boyfriend, like boys in your case, like your guy friends or your girlfriends.
Just hanging out.
Those interactions you get that don't necessarily involve kissing or going to bed. And a lot of times we need to teach people that those are also dates.
Yeah.
Basically, date is an encounter where you share with another individual and a beautiful thing happen, you know. So, and maybe for someone that has an ex, it will be interesting to hear how you're doing it, you know, and what you're paying for, and what are you willing to do, and how you're talking to her, and how she's talking to you. Because I think that positive approaches to any situation are helpful for someone else. You know, you might think it's nothing, but for someone who like just light up a light bulb on their head, you know, oh, this is what I want to do. This seems like appealing to me. It will
Well,
be nice to do that.
no, absolutely. And I've seen so many times where, like, a couple in a relationship, right? One of them decides they want to go in a different direction. Then all of a sudden, because one person made a decision that the other person wasn't that fond of, now all of a sudden he's an asshole or she's a bitch, or, and then it's like, how can that be? Because someone changed their mind, they want to go in a different decision. That doesn't make them a bad person. If anything, it makes them a stronger person, because they were able to come to you and share that, hey, listen, I've had a change of feelings. Well, if you were friends before that, why couldn't you be friends after that? And that's just one of those things that I just have a hard time understanding, especially if no one's done anything bad to the other. You know what I mean? Like, if I've done something bad to her, or she's done something bad to me, okay, I get it. But, in light of those things happening, someone changed their mind, their feelings change. Move on. And even though it's hard, don't get me wrong, because it was hard. Because, here's the other thing I just have to share with you. I'm going to go back, because here was just an incredible experience that I learned. Dudes, I keep calling you out. I'm just going to call you out again. And some of you may be like, dude, why do you keep calling me out? This isn't me. Well, for those of you that are like me, I'm going to call you out. So the other thing that I learned from my pops was, as a man, men are supposed to be tough. We don't cry. We're supposed to be tough and stoic and all this other bullshit. Is it okay if I curse on this show?
Well, yes.
Or should I not? Because if I'm not, I'll use different
they're not for
vernacular.
kids. The videos are not for kids, but yeah, I think they're familiar with the word too.
Okay, so here's the scenario. It's BS. I'll drop it just in case. It's BS. and let me tell you why. The other thing I did after my wife shared that information with me when she said she didn't love me, and I went on this self-discovery trip, I came back to her and I thanked her. And I'm like, thank you so much. You do not believe the gift that you've given me, because she gave me an incredible gift by telling me those words. And you might be saying, huh? How is that an incredible gift? Well, it was her telling me those words sent me on this self-discovery, right? And when she sent me on the self-discovery, what I realized is that I haven't been living. And I probably hadn't been living until, maybe since I was a young adult or a kid, and probably a kid, because, once I became an adult, I started living with this narrative that I'm a man, I've got to provide for my family, I've got to be stoic, I got to be tough. And what it did was it kept me in this range of life, this safe zone, I like to call it, where I'm in the middle. So when I had extreme opportunities for extreme joy, I kind of put the brakes on. I wouldn't let myself experience the extreme joy. And then when I had opportunities for extreme remorse, once again, I put the brakes on, because I have to be tough. And I had to have this outward shell of not showing these emotions, right? Because that's what I learned from my dad, which he probably learned from his dad. And it's BS, because what I realized was, after my wife shared with me this information, or not information, when she shared with me she wasn't in love with me, and I started going on this trip, I realized that I really wasn't experiencing the highest, well, let me back up. I wasn't experiencing these painful moments of remorse and anguish and all these things. I would put the brakes on before I can get to those low lows. But the opposite happened also. When I had opportunities for extreme joy, I wouldn't experience those either. I was living in this safe zone that was absolutely preventing me from living. And the thing that I thought about is, my wife shared this with me, and I'm at the age of 50, right? So at the age of 50 is when I discovered how to live, really for the first time in my adult life, which is an incredible gift. Would I have liked to have gotten the gift at the age of 20? Absolutely. But the fact that I got it at 50 is better than what I believe most guys go through, because I believe that most men, based on what they've been taught in regards to the definition of being a man, end up going to their graves without ever learning how to live and how to experience life and how to experience those high highs, and you just can't do it unless you're willing to get into the low lows. You just can't get there, in my belief. And as I started going down to this journey, I started to realize that during vacations, I would think about getting back home from the big vacation because of all the work that I needed to get done, and the opportunities where I should have just been able to shut off everything else and just enjoy the moment, whether that moment was with my kids, my wife, now my granddaughter. I wasn't doing it because I was too consumed about what was going to happen tomorrow. And then when tomorrow got here, I'm too consumed with what's going to happen the next day. I wasn't able to embrace life for what it is. And that's an incredible gift to get. When I went camping with my granddaughter, so I have I bought a Tesla, and they have this mattress that you can buy where you can camp inside your car when it's time to go to sleep. So I have a tent set up behind my car, but I slept in my, I have a tent set up behind my car, but we really slept inside the car because I like climate control. So I only take camping so far, but being able to go camping with my 3-year-old granddaughter this past weekend was absolutely incredible. And I think about the opportunities that I missed with my own kids, because when they were this age, and we would go do these events, I believe that I know I was somewhat disconnected because I was too consumed with what do I have to do to get back to work and, pay these bills and all these other things, instead of just 100% focused and enjoying the moment for what that moment was, because there was no guarantee I was going to get it back. So the reason I dove into that is because I believe that a lot of guys, a lot of dudes, the ones that I'm talking to, is that the definition that you may have been given for what it is to be a man, in my opinion, is wrong. And being able to cry and not look to hide it or hold this stuff in is very, very powerful. What I realized is being able to embrace these low lows allows me to really enjoy these high highs and get out of that safe zone and really don't give a damn what other people think. And that's also liberating. Being vulnerable, sharing this story with you. The old me a year or two ago, there is no way in hell I was going to share this story with you, because I had this outward persona of, hey, this is Stormie and I've got all my shit together and I'm not supposed to have these bad things happening to me and all this other stuff. Well, guess what? It was stupid. Now this is me, and if you don't like it, I really don't give a damn. But it's me being authentic, and it just takes so much pressure off of you. It's just incredible. Even in my book, The World's Best Buyer Persona, right? My mom is not a person that likes any type of profanity. So I remember when I was writing this book, I dropped the shit bomb, every so often, and I give a copy of the book to my mom. Now, when I say she doesn't like profanity, when I was a kid, my mom took me to see E.T. And I remember we're watching E.T., we paid movie tickets, and one of the kids said the word shit. She picked me up, or not picked me up, she grabbed my hand and walked out the movie theater. And I'm like, what? What's this all about? It's not E.T. because of that word? I hear that in school every day. But I don't know where I was going with that, but basically, inside my book, I write the way I speak. And if you don't like it, I had several people said, who were editors, said, Stormie, you should take that bad word or two out the book. You'll sell more copies. And I'm like, well, then I'm going to sell less copies because it's not me. And if you either like me for who I am, or you don't, either way I'm cool with. And that's something that it's a very liberating experience. And I would have had that experience if my wife never would have told me that she wasn't in love with me anymore.
I think expressing the words the way they come out of you connects people, because it's an understanding of how you're feeling. And when you're avoiding that word that you want to say, it takes out of how you want to finish that sentence, but how you want to express that context that you're expressing. So it is important that you defend who you are, because ultimately when people is authentic is when you make more money, and not because we're going for the money, but it's because what connects people. And that's what makes people permission to be who they are. Basically, what you did, you gave permission to yourself to be who you were and to enjoy life and to go low and high, but to also be able to let yourself live low and let yourself enjoy high. So I
Right.
think that that's beautiful.
Yeah. So I think it's beautiful too. I'm digging. I'm enjoying this next stage of life, and I'm really enjoying this next stage of life because I'm really living for the first time since I was probably a kid, and that's something that it was an incredible gift that my wife or my ex-wife had given me, and I'm so grateful to her. And I wishes, I really sincerely hope that more people would be able to get this gift because it's extremely liberating. I believe it's going to have me live longer because I had so much pent up stress inside of me, not willing to release it. But yeah, that was, that was pretty incredible. Here, let me share. Can I share some other stories with you about this?
Yes.
It's on topic of this because this has been a pretty ridiculous year. I just want to share this with you too, because this is all about vulnerability, right? So my wife tells, she shares this information with me in July of last year, and we worked through it. So in February, my book, The World's Best Buyer Personas, it's about to come out. It's going through the final edits. And my mom pulls me aside and she says, you know what, Stormie, before you publish your book, I need to meet with you. I'm like, okay. I'm like, well, it's going to go to the editor. She says, please, please, please don't send the book into the editor until you meet with me. And I'm thinking like, okay, what's with that? So my mom proceeds to tell me a story, and that's February of this year. So by the way, I'm going to back up for just a moment. My mom was, married to a guy who I knew was my stepdad. She got married to him when I was about 3, but I always considered him to be my dad because he didn't treat me like his stepson. He treated me like his son, right? And I remember, prior to that, the gentleman, my biological dad, was very abusive towards my mom, right? So that's what I recall as a kid. So in February, my mom says, hey, Stormie, I want to have a conversation with you. And before the book's published. And the conversation was basically to tell me that the person who I thought was my biological dad wasn't. Right? I'm like, what? So, if you look at me, you may wonder like, hey, what nationality is this guy, right? Because most people think I'm white. Some people think I'm Puerto Rican. Some people think people just don't know what I am. I'm this enigma, right? But my mom, she's black. The guy who I thought was my biological dad is also black. He's the biological dad of my father. Of my sister, excuse me. So she pulls me aside and she proceeds to tell me that the guy who I thought was my biological dad isn't. And that kind of caught me off guard. And I'm like, well, why are you telling me this now? Well, the funny part about it is I'm also writing another book, and my mom got the 2 books confused. One of the books I'm writing is my life story, which is being a black guy who looks like a white guy who lived in all these different communities, and that book's called Blending In, being able to blend into a wide variety of communities of wide socioeconomic economic backgrounds by moving all over the country, and that's a whole different story. But when my mom tells me this, I'm wondering, why is she telling me now? And she proceeds to tell me that my biological dad is actually white. So I'm like, okay, well, that explains a lot for my skin color, because the guy I thought was my biological dad was like dark. And I'm like, I don't know why I'm white. Maybe I'm a milkman baby. I don't know. But, I just didn't know because my brothers and sisters are dark. So I lived my entire life just thinking I'm a light-skinned black dude, right? That's all I knew. So she proceeds to tell me that my biological dad is a guy named George. When she was young, she used to date him. They met at a restaurant together. And I just want to give you the story that she shared with me, because this was an incredible story that happened when I also found out that, I'm going through this, potentially this divorce, that my marriage was falling apart. So She tells me what she went through as a mom. And this is just one of those things that, you know, prior to this story, my mom was my mom. And after this story, she became a superhero of mine. And what she proceeded to share with me, that I'm going to share with you, is also pretty incredible. So when I was born, my mom was very sick, so sick that they actually read her last rites in the hospital. They didn't expect her to make it. And after I was born, it took her several weeks to come through. But while she was in the hospital and while I was in the baby ward, there was a guy hanging out the hospital, and the hospital's like, "Who are you?" He's like, "I'm the baby's father." So they're like, "Oh, okay, well, we don't think the mom's going to make it, but we do all the paperwork." So he knew he wasn't the father, but he did put his name down on the birth certificate as being my dad, as my biological father, right? So when my mom came through, you know, several weeks later, she confronts him on this. And I already told you that he was abusive. So when she confronted him, he probably was, you know, potentially going to get in a lot of trouble, but he threatened her life if she told anyone. So if you can imagine, he threatens her life that if she tells anyone that he's not the father, uh, he threatened her life. So that's pretty, you know, just an incredible situation and scenario. And going back to my dad, or my biological father, it was someone that my mom was madly in love with. They were living in Los Angeles, working in a restaurant together, and there was it was tough having a mixed couple back then. You know, black female with a white guy, and during the time that they were dating, there was lots of things happening in terms of racial relations. Where they were at in Los Angeles, there was the Watts riot that happened when they were serious in their relationship, and there were lots of other things that happened during the Watts riot that really made those two, you know, drove those two apart. They realized that it just wasn't going to happen, and according to my mom, that was really like the person, the love of her life, and I had come along. He didn't know that that she was pregnant with me, and there's much more to the story, but we don't have enough time for that. But the thing that I wanted to share with you is that, you know, my mom was carrying this incredible secret this entire time. And when she shared this with me, and remember, I'm 50 years old before she shares the secret with me. And the only reason that, I don't know the only reason, but what compelled her to share the truth was she knew I had a book coming out, and she didn't want me to have inaccurate information within the book. And when she shared this information with me, she's in tears because she thought I was going to hate her for holding the secret. And you know, I looked at it and I just realized the sacrifices, and there was many more to the story that I probably shouldn't share right now. You know, there's just, because it's more of her story than mine, but I can just tell you the sacrifices that my mom made for me and my siblings to have a fair shot at life were just absolutely incredible. And when she shared all of these sacrifices that she had made, sacrifices that if I had to do the same thing, I would ask myself, would I have the ability of doing that? I don't know. Probably not. She's a much stronger person than myself. And my mom went from being my mom, and she went to this superhero status because what she did was extraordinary. And that's one of those things that I believe there's probably more moms that would make the sacrifices that she made than dads, because we're wimps, you know, when it comes to that sort of thing. But after my mom gave me that news, and I remember it was the next week, my wife and I are going to church. And I remember we walked into church, we're sitting in the front row, and I had the weight of my marriage falling apart. And then I have thinking about what my mom had told me the day before. I just ran out to church and went into my car, and I just sat there and just bawled and cried because I started thinking about, yeah, Stormie, what you're going through, it's some shit, but compare that to what your mom went through and the sacrifices that she made for you. And then holding this burden, holding this secret for 50 years of because of a wide variety of reasons. Initially, you know, because someone threatened her life if she told the truth, but just holding on to that type of burden was just something that was overwhelming and incredible to me. And you know, I'm hoping my mom gives me the option of sharing the sacrifices. And even though I believe they're incredible and extraordinary, I also have the belief that there's other moms out there that may have made similar types of sacrifices for their kids. And moms are incredible, just incredible. And but yeah, my mom's a superhero. So I know that's not the the topic of this, but where I wanted to go with that from that story, that's just another reason that I need to embrace life. It would be a waste of my life. It would be a waste of her sacrifices if I didn't do anything and everything that I could, not only to enhance my life, but really make a difference in the lives of anyone that I come in contact with.
I think she knew she had to rescue you and be the angel. It's like when people care about us, they don't let us fall. And I think that she saw a potential fall on you, that she didn't want it to happen. That's why she rescued you. What she did was an act of rescue and giving you that gift of knowing who your real dad is. And now you become to understand why you look different, why you think different, why you can blend everywhere, and why this is happening to you, because it has been probably something that was already evolving that you were not aware until it crashed on you. And you had to realize,
Right.
It actually happened to me.
Really?
Yeah. That's what I think, that we're always rescuing our kids, but we're always rescuing ourselves.
Right.
I think that the angel part on you connected to the angel part on her, where she just knew that she had to be there. And she knew you needed her the most at that time. And she just had to come and give you a gift, because otherwise you would have been lost. Like how many people suicide after this, experiences in life, or how many people go into drinking drugs, or many other, or dating like 50 different people just because they don't feel fulfilled, or they want to show that they can still do it. You could have gone anywhere that she didn't thought it was beneficial for you or your family. It was, and she was just having this pure love for you, and that's what changed the world to you right then. It's like Makan calls, she break you open. Both of these ladies break you open.
Absolutely.
In different ways.
Absolutely, and yeah, and it's painful getting broken open, but in my opinion, after experiencing it, at least for me, life really hasn't begun until I was broken open.
Yes, because it started on a different way. Like now you didn't have attachments to what it was. You were just willing to live.
Right.
And giving someone that gift is something that you get to appreciate, and you
Absolutely.
get to see them in a different way, and you get to love them in a different way. It's like this respect and appreciation that you have for this person that, and now doesn't have an attachment that you need to be this for me, or you need to be this box where I had you on, because you're actually in another bigger box that I didn't realize you could be.
Right. No, absolutely.
What else do you want to share with us? Where can people follow you again?
So you can, if you want to know more about me, you can find, you can always go to stormieandrews.com, and it's Stormie with an IE. That's my website, and it gives you a little bit of background behind me, or you can go to my company's website, Yokel Local. You'll find me doing some goofball things there. What I've been asked, I've been more of a recluse, meaning that I've been living in this world behind the scenes, especially as it comes to my company, Yokel Local. But many people who know me, they're like, Stormie, you've got to get for the world. You need to get out there, and you got to get out there more often. So now you'll find me doing more videos. So if you want to say, hey, let me check out this goofball, I'll have lots of videos. I'm on a couple of podcasts. I'm easy to find. You can just Google stormieandrews.com. And so you'll find me on podcast. You can find out information about my book, The World's Best Fire Persona System. And it's kind of weird just to kind of go back on the World's Best Fire Persona System, because in reality, I've been writing this book my entire life. And the reason I want to bring that up is being a a guy that, biracial guy from the 60s, which we were not that common, but my stepdad, who I mentioned earlier, had a job with the government where we moved, and we moved a lot because we followed the ship around the country. So I didn't experience what it was like to go to the same school 2 years in a row until my junior and senior year in high school. Prior to that, sometimes I went to multiple schools in the same school year, and we moved all over the country. And when we would move to a wide variety of communities and neighborhoods. Some of the communities we would move to were upscale, or more suburban. Some of the communities we would move to were more urban. So I was continuously this new guy in a wide variety of neighborhoods, that some communities were predominantly white, some communities were predominantly Black, some communities were a pretty good mix between, wide variety of races, and some were just outright segregated when I was down south. And being a kid, growing up every year, not every year, but sometimes multiple times a year, every time we'd move, I got pretty good at reinventing myself, finding out how to read people. Because what I had realized was that in some of these communities, if you didn't play your cards right, you can get penalized pretty heavily. And I was penalized pretty heavily. So, a lot of the racial tension things that we have going on right now, some people they don't get it because they've never experienced it. So they believe because they haven't experienced it, it doesn't exist. But I've had scenarios to where, a unique scenario where I've been able to live as a white guy, as a Black guy. I've been able to live as a white guy in predominantly white neighborhoods, being perceived as a white guy in predominantly Black neighborhoods, as a Black guy in predominantly white neighborhoods, as a Black guy in predominantly Black neighborhoods. So I've had this unique experience that I've been able to blend into a wide variety of communities. And in order for me not to get penalized, I got pretty good at being able to blend in and quickly discerning what persona I needed to be in order to be accepted within that community, which is kind of incredible, because that was my upbringing, that I write a book on the topic. And it wasn't until I got until I became trained in neurolinguistic programming that I understood what was happening. And then I was able to take those experiences and put it down into training. And now it's a formula that many marketers use to create their messaging. But the point that I wanted to make there, I really don't remember where I was going to. That's probably these long-winded answers. But what Maria brought up earlier, when I wrote this particular book, which was primarily written for the business community, I had a few people tell me, they're like, wow, Stormie, that buyer persona book is pretty incredible. I believe I can apply that to have a better relationship with my family, with my children, with my spouses, or not spouses, with my spouse, or people I'm in relationships with. And so when I wrote the book, I wrote it strictly from the mindset and the perspective in the business world. But now I've had multiple people tell me that they can absolutely apply this, because the book's really about putting the other person front and center. It's a shame I didn't do that in my marriage, towards the end when things turned around, but hearing those words of affirmation from individuals that have read the book has been pretty incredible. And so, the World's Best Buyer Persona book, even though it's written for the business community, it can absolutely be applied in your personal lives as well.
Well, I believe we can all read our own books. I believe that the message that we're sharing is what we need to feel. Yep. So ultimately, I think if you open the book like a Bible, and there's going to be that guidance that you need for the day, and it's going to be like, oh my God, I couldn't believe, I wrote this.
Yeah.
And it's like a gift for yourself. It's never lost, the ability to just remember what you wrote is there. I was talking to Judy Morio the other day, and she says, how we talk, people who write books about their downloads from the universe, and it's something you don't remember writing. So I was talking to her the other day. I was doing lashes on her. She says, what happened to me sometimes? She says that I wake up in the morning and I read what I wrote last night, and she says I don't have a memory of writing them. Right. And it's beautiful.
Wow.
Yeah,
that's so awesome to hear that.
I think that there is parts in the book that you don't remember writing, that when you go back and find them, you're gonna have the same realization. I don't remember writing that, and it's beautiful. And it's probably what applies currently to you, that you probably didn't need it back then, but it was there for you.
Well, it's funny. I'm going to dive into that really quick because you're right on the money. When I was writing the book, my book editor, or my first editor, or my book coach, who was also my first editor, there was one particular week when I was just having a really, really bad week. I was having a tough week because of what was going through in my marriage. And as I wrote these particular chapters, as I'm getting into the psychology of the buyer, I was writing from my wounded heart at that particular time frame. So she got on the phone and called me. As a matter of fact, it was Cheryl Green. She's been on your show. So Cheryl, she was my book coach. And Cheryl said, Stormie, what is going on in your life right now? Because I just read what you wrote and it was just bringing me to tears. So what's going on with you? Because you made this complete 180. I'm like, wow, I had no idea that I wrote that stuff. But she says, yeah, we definitely have to rewrite this because you just went on this crazy train place. And it was just so funny because you write, you write from the heart and you don't even remember writing it. So that's pretty incredible what you just shared with me. Thank you.
Yes. Well, it was definitely needed, and sometimes it's like these turns that we take that it seems like they're redirecting people to where they need to go. And a lot of times when we talk about business or you want to train someone on leadership, there is always that part of the soul that goes where that person needs to go first before
Yeah.
you direct them to the next step. So all those redirects that we take when we guide people, but also when we're being guided, they're always on point. It's like having someone sitting down on a chair and tell them, just sit down and be loved.
Yep.
Just sit down and be loved. Because after you do that, then your mind is open to possibilities, then you can show the next step. Then you can show
Absolutely.
this is what you do now.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so sometimes it's just that, sit down and be loved.
Yep.
My boyfriend slept over last night, so he's sitting in the bed and he's almost leaving. So I come to him and I just come like close and he said, What is that about? I said, nothing. I'm just loving you. Is that okay? He said, yeah, that's fine. But
Nice.
sometimes you have to come like that, with people. Or I'll be like touching my little one, touching his back, or I'm touching his face, and he says, "What, mom? What are you doing?" I say, "I'm loving you. Is that okay?" He said, "Yeah." And sometimes, we just need to tell people, "I'm loving you." What I'm
Right.
doing is just, I'm loving you, and love might look in different ways. So you just have to get close and let them feel you. Let them feel
Absolutely.
that you love them.
Absolutely.
Any shout outs? Anything you want to say?
No, I think there's a great way for we're recording this in the morning. It's just a great way for me to start this morning. So
Thank you so much.
this was great. Thanks.
Yeah, for anyone that will watch it any other day, today is Sunday morning. So I think it's a beautiful day to start the show. So this is number one. You're gonna see more with other guests, but also we'll have Stormie back on this one on online dating, and looking forward to do a big event with me and my friends. So it's gonna be good. It's gonna be a beautiful ride. That you're gonna be happy that you jump in.
Well, I'm digging it. You know what? It's it's been the tough times in my life that when I've come out on the other side that I've been most grateful for these tough times. And this is probably the toughest thing I've ever experienced. So I'm really excited what God has in store for me on this other side.
No, but and also looking back, it's like now that you read the book, and you're not the same person that you were before you wrote it, and even in the process, even in the editing, even in choosing the title.
Right.
Just hold it in your hands and see a tangible piece of art that has your name.
Yep.
So that is, beautiful. But I think it's gonna be an experience that you're gonna appreciate, when you look back. But also
Absolutely.
that is gonna give you more ideas. How can you make more videos?
Yep.
How can we make another one now?
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you. Thank you
Thanks,
for
Maria.
coming over. You didn't know you were my first guest on Pure Soul.
All right.
It's just, I think, when I invite people, sometimes they're not ready. And I had invited a couple ladies that were just not ready. And then so when I was gonna have you on online dating, but and then I saw the post about your divorce, and I said, no, I have to have him on Pure Soul because the state of um, love that you are right now is what I wanted to show. That is like something we're not gonna get a hold of like this in months because you're gonna be somewhere else, and I wanted
Right.
to grab you right here.
Well, hopefully I brought it.
You did. You did. And you're gonna see when you watch the video, just like you did say, you're gonna say, oh, I don't remember us saying that.
Wow. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And
Right.
it's beautiful. And you're gonna get comments like, did I really say that? Let me go back and watch it. Where did that come
Right.
from?
Nice.
Thank you so much. It's
Thanks,
nice to see
Maria.
you again, and thank you for trusting me again and being able to set your time aside for us. Because
Absolutely.
everybody who is gonna watch our video that is gonna be happy that you did this for us.
Nice.
Thank you.
Well, cool. You're welcome. Thanks a lot. I enjoyed being here.
I'm glad. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Bye.